secure not only the demographic dividend, but the future we all want for Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Lookmore. Investment. I think that the team's taking notes are taking notes of all the recommendation, but this is the word of the day. Now, before I give the floor to Mr. Dalmachon, I want to ask all the participants to write their questions in the chat box to the panelists, and then my colleague Juliana and myself will address them on your behalf. Please write your questions, dear attendees and participants. Now, without due delay, Mr. Sean Dalmas, you have the floor.
All protocols observed. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are in the world. It is an honor to join the call today as one of the panelists of this conversation. Now, I will not take time to introduce myself much. Let's dive into what brought us here. Now, as Mr. Linton shared at the beginning, as he was giving his opening remarks, Africa is indeed the youngest continent in the world, and young people are Africa's greatest opportunity. And because of that, Africa holds one of the greatest prospects of transformation in modern history. But the demographic dividend is not unlocked by population growth alone. It's unlocked by informed, healthy, educated, and empowered young people. And that is why conversations around SRH are not optional conversations. They are foundational conversation for Africa's future. Now, I bring in the perspective from a digital side of the world, because when young people have access to accurate information, quality healthcare, and the ability to make informed decisions about their bodies and their futures, we not only improve their health outcomes, we improve educational outcomes, we improve economic participation, and we improve leadership outcomes. We strengthen families, communities, and ultimately protect the future of Africa. Now, many young people are learning about SRH through misinformation, stigma, silence, and content online that was never designed to educate them responsibly. And I believe one of the biggest challenges that we face is not that young people are disconnected from that information. It is that institutions are often disconnected from how young people consume information and should be given information every day. Now, young people are spending hours on TikTok, on Insta, on YouTube, on podcasts, WhatsApp communities, and other digital spaces. These platforms no longer simply entertain the youth, they shape beliefs, behaviors, identity, relationships, and decision-making at scale. So if we are serious about advancing SRH awareness and harnessing the demographic dividend across Africa, then we must also become serious about digital communication, the storytelling, and youth-led advocacy, not just any advocacy, but digital advocacy. As someone who works in media, digital storytelling, and youth engagement every single day, I've seen how powerful communication becomes when young people feel represented in the conversation rather than spoken at. Young people do not want they do not simply want campaigns directed towards them. They want authenticity, they want dialogue, they want to see faces that they recognize and they trust in what they say. This means SRH communication across Africa must become visual, more localized, more creator-led, and more community-driven. Now, one thing I say, even within my organization, is that I strongly believe that there's an opportunity for organizations like Aldanepad, the Pan-African Union, youth forums across Africa, creators, advocates, digital storytellers, to work together in synergy and build a Pan-African digital advocacy ecosystem, or rather a framework, if not a campaign. And the ecosystem that I'm talking about is where youth creators are trained and empowered to educate their communities. Storytelling is translated into local languages and cultural context. Institutions collaborate directly with young digital voices, and advocacy moves beyond one-off webinars like this into long-term online communities and movements that mobilize people through how we communicate. Because communication should never be treated as an afterthought to the policy. Communication is the infrastructure. Communication is what transforms policy into public understanding. And if we want youth on board, we need to figure out where they are and put the information where they understand it. And in today's Africa, digital platforms are some of the most powerful tools we have to educate, mobilize, and inspire young people at scale. As a young African myself, a youth advocate, and someone and someone privileged to engage with thousands of young people through my platforms, I remain hopeful. I believe African youth are ready to lead, ready to innovate, ready to shape the future of this content, but they need access, they need trust, they need representation, and they need systems that genuinely include them in the conversation. Because Africa's future will not only be shaped in policy rooms, it will also be shaped on digital platforms, in youth communities, and through the stories we choose to tell the next generation. Digital platforms shape movements, shape ideologies, and they can definitely shape the next generation of Africa. That was my time. My name is Sean Dalmas. I'm the Executive Director of Empowerment Network Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Digital advocacy, digital media, access, trust, and real integration for youth. All of that is well noted. Now we are moving to Miss Ella Tambalaweko, SRH Coordinator of Youth Action for Success in Development. Miss Ella, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, the moderator, and all the speakers that spoke before me. And I understand that a lot of issues has been already tackled by my colleagues. What I want to share is the initiative that I was involved in as a youth advocate and as well as the youth officer, the SRHR coordinator in my organization. So we had this initiative that we're working on SRHR concerning the adolescent girls and young women and adolescent boys and young men. So when we're working in the community, we found that there was little accurate information in regards to sexual reproductive healthy rights and as well as low uptake of services for young people. So this was happening because we had realized that there were a lot of harmful cultural practices around the area, and as well as we had little representation of women and girls in the decision-making spaces. And as well as in the hard-to-reach areas, more young people were not able to access these services. So this all contributed to the rise in teenage pregnancies, early marriages, and as well as the school dropouts. So throughout the intervention, we made sure that we had the youth dialogues in the communities, in the radios. We had the peer education sessions and all that. So that really helped in addressing the issues. And we worked closely with the government officials to make sure that the services are readily available to all the young people, including in the hard-to-reach areas, and as well as more girls are active in their they have their voices represented in all the decision-making places. So this was just a story of how the shifts has been happening. Yeah, so from the experience that I've explained, you could see that there is a direct link between SRHR in all the important thematic areas, including education, gender equality. We talk of climate change, we talk of employment. There is that direct link, which means that if we focus or if we invest much in SRHR, that means that we are going to have a better outcome in all the areas. Yeah, so my recommendations are, I think it's very important for the policymakers, the development partners to make sure that they understand and they prioritize SRHR just like all other areas. Because, for example, in Malawi, I would say that SRHR doesn't have a specific budget line, which means to say that there are still gaps in regards to SRHR. So at least we could have the budget line or SRHR prioritized just as any other interventions. And as well, I realize that there is an issue of policy gaps. The policy gaps is coming in because most of the policies in most countries are coming in English, which means that a lot of people in deep remote areas are not able to understand those policies and make use of them. So I think if we could also invest in making sure that we have policies in different languages so that more young people or more people should have access to that. And as well, my word to the policymakers, the young people themselves, is that we should make sure and we should understand that the young people should not only be consulted, but they should be partners in making sure that all the interventions young people are involved from the planning up until implementation to make sure that all the voices are heard and to make sure that the interventions that are being implemented are based on the needs of the young people themselves. Thank you so much, and over the moderator.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The only issue with Zoom is that we are most likely to have technical issues like this. Can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you. Allow
Yes,
me.
we can hear you.
Thank you so much, Juliana. Allow me now to go to Mr. Levi Sint, who is the Regional Policy Officer of SRHR Africa Trust. Mr. Levi, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator, and greetings to the rest of the panelists and to the audience. My name is Levi Singh. As the moderator had indicated, I work at the SRH Africa Trust. My work's really on regional lobby and advocacy to advance adolescent and youth SRHR. Look, I think a number of important points have been raised by all colleagues on the importance of engaging young people and the need to really invest in a demographic dividend. I want to approach my intervention a bit differently and emphasize the importance of political leadership. I personally worked on the development of the demographic dividend roadmap in 2017, and it is quite an indictment on us all and on African youth in particular that less than half of African Union member states have demographic dividend roadmaps at a national level, almost 10 years after we adopted the demographic dividend roadmap continentally. And I think we really need to be demanding serious political accountability for the demographic dividend, as well as the centrality of adolescent and youth SRHR in the context of realizing a demographic dividend. I think what's a further indictment is that in 2026, the leading cause of mortality, death of Africa's adolescents and young people is AIDS. And this is very different from the rest of other regions where the leading cause of death of adolescents and young people is road traffic accidents, it's suicide, it's everything but AIDS. But on the African continent, we're losing human capital on an annual basis to something that's completely preventable. And at the same time, less than half of young Africans have access to information on how to prevent HIV as well as prevent pregnancies. So we really need to look at the discourse that has been around the demographic dividend over the last decade and ask ourselves if we've really been doing enough and if there is enough political will and leadership to link demographic dividend to better SRHR outcomes and ultimately developing human capital. I've heard the word investment thrown around a lot during this webinar, and I say yes, investment, but investment needs to inform strategy and be guided by strategy. And unfortunately, I don't think that we have a clear and consistent understanding of what our SRHR strategy is as a continent. And I think as young leaders, we need to be awfully familiar with the Addis Ababa Declaration on Population and Development. We need to be awfully familiar with the Maputo Program of Action and those two frameworks and how they conceptualize adolescent and youth SRHR. And we need to hold our governments accountable ultimately to deliver those frameworks in the form of legislation, policy, and programming that can advance SRHR and a demographic dividend for ourselves. The last point I'll make, and maybe this is my recommendation, during COVID, we saw how ministries could come together to address the COVID crisis. It wasn't just a response from ministries of health, it included education, social protection, and most importantly, ministries of finance. Why aren't we thinking about the demographic dividend from the same framing? I often tell Linton and other colleagues at NEPAD, we don't just need a slogan around the demographic dividend or a campaign. We need tangible political leadership and coordination right at heads of state level and then down to ministerial level within member states that almost enable a COVID-like response that is systemic, that ensures that ministries of health, ministries of education, ministries of youth, finance and treasury, and then parliaments are really working on one shared plan towards advancing a demographic dividend, that there's annualized or regularized reporting on how member states are doing, as opposed to us revisiting demographic dividend as a slogan every 5 years and saying the same things that we've been saying for almost a decade now, but having very little to show in terms of actual outcomes. So my recommendation would be stronger political coordination, greater consistency and clarity in terms of the strategy that we're demanding investment around, and for us as young people to really lead in the context of this year, where we have the African Youth Charter being reviewed at 20 years. We need to ensure that the SRHR agenda is front and center of linking the demographic dividend to the broader aspirations of youth development on the continent with the African Youth Charter review. And ultimately, again, the Addis Declaration on Population and Development and the Maputo Program of Action as key enablers and mobilization points for young people to advance both SRHR and core national development outcomes for young people. Thanks, moderator.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Levi. Very insightful, linking policymakers to youth voices, concrete political will. I think that this is why we're having this webinar today. And as Director Simer started, this is a webinar of action. We're taking these recommendations and we are doing a second series of webinars with the policymakers, and we want to hear your voices. So I'm moving, I'm moving to the voices of the participants and attendees. And I'm giving the floor to my colleague, Juliana, to take us through the questions for the panelists. Juliana, you have the floor.
Thank you once again to our panelists for their presentations. From my end, I've captured, let's say, 10 questions, but I'm going to give a free series of questions and I'll let you panelists to respond, and then I come back again to ask the other questions. So the first question was from Tafese Berigena. What practical actions should African countries prioritize to ensure that SRH investments lead to a sustainable demographic dividend and economic growth? What practical actions should African countries prioritize to ensure that sexual and reproductive health investment lead to a sustainable demographic dividend and economic growth? Move to a second question. How can international agencies effectively adopt their current interventions to bridge these generational gaps? And what are the strategic plans to sustain essential sexual and reproductive health services under such complex conditions and to ensure that youth are not left behind? I repeat again, how can international agencies effectively adopt their current interventions to bridge the generational gaps? And what are the strategic plans to sustain essential SRH services under such complex conditions to ensure youth are not left behind? And the third one, it's a remark from Nance René in French. La meilleure solution pour la question de la santé sexuelle et reproductive, c'est la valorisation de la formation professionnelle et des métiers afin de mieux occuper les jeunes. Voilà donc les trois premières questions de nos audiences. Over, moderator.
Merci beaucoup, Juliana. Merci infiniment. Je vais donner l'ordre de parole aux panélistes qui souhaiteraient le prendre. I will give the floor to whomever of the panelists wants to respond under 1 minute, please. So please raise your hand. I'm thinking that the first question, how to bridge generational gap, I'm gonna actually ask my sister, Miss Karima, to speak to the issue in 1 minute. Miss Karima Ghanem.
Thank you so much. I would like to have a combined answer, a bit of.
So you have 2 minutes then. You are muted, Karima.
Oh, okay. No? Okay, all right. So I think, first of all, protecting sexual and reproductive health, more specifically in conflict-affected areas, requires one key strategy. First of all, it's investing in resilient community-based on youth-led systems. This is very important, and this needs a political will by African states. Also, working with local actors is really remaining key, because community-based awareness is very important. And throughout different experiences, creating community-based safe spaces for people to talk about sexual and reproductive health proved to be very efficient. Also, working with local actors in the field, especially in crisis time, expanding mobile clinics, digital health solutions, school-based services, and also trained peer educators to reach rural youth, because the remote areas and mountainous areas are very important to include them in the whole process. Also, local government has a key role to play. So integrating sexual and reproductive health in local government plans is very important. And also in disaster response plans with dedicated budget. We cannot just include, the sexual reproductive health without dedicating special budget for this. Also, in terms of economic growth, sexual health issues can be also an opportunity for social entrepreneurship. And we have a lot of experiences where young people are co-creators of digital solutions and creating, solving a lot of problems of sexual and reproductive health through digitalization, through AI. Also, when people have access to quality services, they can effectively participate in the economy, in the workforce, and also increase productivity. So I think this needs a holistic approach, a combination of collaboration between local actors, local government, international organization, to have an integrated national or regional strategy while including young people in the process as co-creators. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Karima Ghanem. Very insightful combination of questions. I think that for the sake of time, I see no hands raised, so I will give the second set of questions to Juliana. Please proceed, my dear.
Thank you so much, Asmaï. This question is in French, so I invite you to activate the translation. C'est une question sur l'accès des jeunes aux services de santé. La question est, quelles sont les stratégies concrètes qui peuvent être mises en place pour rapprocher les services de santé auprès des jeunes ruraux et aussi auprès des étudiants? Et aussi, quels mécanismes existent aujourd'hui pour permettre aux organisations de jeunesse d'accéder aux financements internationaux? Et la dernière question, ça concerne la culture. La culture, comment renforcer l'éducation sexuelle responsable tout en respectant les réalités culturelles et communautaires de nos territoires. Voilà.
Merci beaucoup, Juliana. Je pense que je vais adresser la première question à Madame Fadimatou. Madame Fadimatou, vous êtes avec nous? Mrs. Fadimatou.
Oui, je suis avec vous. Oui,
merci. Alors, vous en tant que présidente du Conseil national du Cameroun, est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire comment est-ce que vous travaillez pour faire faciliter l'accès des jeunes pour les services de santé, spécialement dans les zones rurales?
Alors, pour l'accès aux services de santé dans les zones rurales au Cameroun, nous avons 3 stratégies prioritaires, notamment à travers les cliniques mobiles dans les zones rurales et les points d'écoute jeunes dans les établissements scolaires et universitaires à travers les conseillers d'orientation à l'école et la formation des pères éducateurs qui sont capables d'orienter les jeunes vers des services confidentiels et adaptés Surtout, on a mené cette expérience-là avec l'accompagnement de UNFPA au Cameroun. On a fait ça avec Afrian et le CNJC. Et ça montre que les cliniques mobiles et les pères éducateurs peuvent améliorer l'accès à l'information et aux services de santé reproductive, ainsi qu'à la prévention des violences basées sur le genre. Il faut aussi penser au fait qu'on a les autorités traditionnelles, les parents, les enseignants et les associations de jeunesse qui permettent aussi de réduire les tabous et le gap sur la peur et le jugement que les uns et les autres ont sur des questions de santé sexuelle et reproductive.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, Madame Fadimacho. C'est très intéressant. Et puis, je pense que le rôle aussi de l'Union panafricaine de la jeunesse, c'est de partager les bonnes pratiques entre conseils nationaux de la jeunesse. Et c'est ce qui nous permettra de faire avancer cet agenda. Je vois, I see the hand of Mr. Levi Sint raised. Please, Mr. Levi, you have the floor.
Thanks, moderator. Maybe just a brief comment on the culture question, if I heard it correctly. I think definitely a pertinent question and something that we need to think through more strategically. I think the role of traditional and religious leaders in shaping cultural norms are immensely important, and I think we can do more to engage on the culture question. However, I think it's really worth centering the things that unite us. And in South Africa, in Southern Africa, we like to talk about Ubuntu. Ubuntu as a value that I am because of you are, and our shared humanity, really. I think that there's also shared values of compassion, of generosity, of care, and of empathy. And I think whenever you engage with older generations and culture shapers, there's often the recognition from them that they would like our generation and generations that come after us to be better than them, to have better health, better opportunities, and better lives. And I think ultimately we need to explore and test narratives that are centered on care, on compassion, on empathy, and of opportunities. And I like what Lakmo had said, what is the cost of inaction and the cost of not centering compassion and empathy and opportunity, and what does that cost us collectively as a continent and communities at a very small scale ultimately. So that would just be my knee-jerk reaction to the culture question.
Thank you so much. So with that, we covered everything except for the access to financing for youth. I think I was going to ask you, Mr. Levi, to help me on this question. But I think I'm going to pass the floor to Dr. Vivian. Dr. Vivian, what can you say about access to financing for youth? I think we don't have Dr. Vivian. Okay, let me go back to Mrs. Karima Ghanem, because she's also done a lot of resource mobilization for youth. In under 1 minute, Karima, please. Thank you.
I think accessing finance for young people is very key because we cannot advance youth, whether civic or political participation, without financing, and it requires a strategy, more specifically young people who are members of civil society organizations, to find different types of financing, whether international organizations or government or local governments, through projects, and also through innovative financing. Now, I think one of the most innovative financing today is the crowdfunding, because there has been a study across different African countries where they adopted crowdfunding for enterprises into civil society organizations. And if I can give a quick example, for Morocco, there are certain social enterprises who got authorization for fundraising, and they mobilize civil society organizations. They trained them on how to mobilize funds, and they mobilize funds online. and which is particularly legal through crowdfunding. So this way, when they have projects, especially raising awareness projects in rural communities, etc., they can easily mobilize funds. So they have to differentiate their sources of funding. So I think this is some of the things that youth can explore.
Thank you so much, Karima. I think Mr. Levi, you want to add something? Please, under 1 minute, and then we conclude.
For under 1 minute, I think Karima has made some really useful points. I would say we need to look at engaging with the private sector. Environmental, social, and governance aspects have become so much more important to multinational and national corporations. So positioning youth organizations as key drivers of attaining ESG targets and as partners in promoting responsible corporate development is something that we should look into. Outside of that, I think we also need to look beyond the SRHR movement. I think we are all acutely aware that Africa loses more in illicit financial flows in terms of money that we get in terms of aid. So we need to coordinate across movements. We need to work with organizations that work on financial justice and anti-corruption to really ensure that money can be saved from the fiscus and directed towards national development. As we all know, international development funding is drying up, and development funding in particular is under threat. But we do have resources on the continent. We just need to be more prudent about how we manage it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Levi. Thank you. This has been very insightful for me as well. And I think that those recommendations are going to resonate with the policymakers. This is the role of the African Union Development Agency, NEPAD, coordinating and making the voice being heard. And with that, we conclude our panels. So I am extremely pleased and honored to invite Mr. Linton Mshunu, Senior Advisor to the CEO of AUD and NEPAD, to deliver the closing remarks, summarize the key insights and recommendations from today's dialogue, and outline the next steps. Mr. Linton Mshunu, please, you have the floor.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much, Asmai. And let me really appreciate everybody for having participated in this webinar this afternoon. It's been fantastic, excellent learning experiences from member states, including Zimbabwe, Cameroon, Morocco, Kenya, and a number of other countries, including a number of institutions that are gathered in this webinar, but also doing fantastic work across the continent. I want to applaud you for an excellent webinar and for your interventions that you make. I want to congratulate you for the work that you consistently do in pushing this agenda forward. I think it's really significant, and we welcome your participation. Particularly, I want to thank PYU, I want to thank SRH, Africa Trust, as well as SIOF for partnering with us and working with us in ensuring that we get this webinar underway. The reality coming from this webinar is that there is a number of interventions that are being done, but it's not enough to meet the kind of challenges that we have on the continent. We still have high numbers in teenage pregnancies. We still have alarming rates of gender-based violence and femicide. We still have and experience harmful practices in a number of African countries, and we still have limited access or young people, especially girls, still face the challenge of limited access to comprehensive sexual education, but also family planning and access to services. And that in itself is an indication that we still have a long way to go. We still have a lot to do. And so we also heard this afternoon that the cost of inaction is extremely huge. And we do hope that the recommendations that come out of this session would be able to move into the policy forums and encourage the leaders that make decisions on the futures of our continent. Let me just highlight one or two specific recommendations that came out of here. Firstly, we heard about the importance of investment in SRH. And that's a significant piece, a significant point that was raised. But we also heard that investment needs to be informed by clear strategy, informed and guided by clear strategy. And that's a fundamental aspect. And that talks to political will and it talks to intention, making deliberate steps in ensuring that we're able to support this significant piece of work. Secondly, we heard very loud and clear that we cannot change realities without changing mentalities. Again, linked to the first aspect, if we don't change the way we don't become deliberate about the change that we want to see, we will not be able to to make the significant interventions and impact that we want to make. Also importantly, we must speak the language of young people. That's a fundamental point that came out. And we heard also the importance of reaching out to where young people are, strengthening, online communication and, engaging through social media, and the fact that, communication can inspire, has the power to inspire and engage young people at a significant rate, much more than, your traditional ways in which we used to do things. And I thought that was quite significant. So meeting young people where they are. Again, we heard about the fact that Africa's future will not be shaped in boardrooms. It will be shaped, for example, through digital platforms. And that's a fundamental aspect. And thank you for that, for sharing those insights with us as well, Dalmas, in terms of the importance of using digital media to drive messaging to young people, because that's where young people are. And I won't go into the detail, but you would know some of the significant movements that have happened, not just in Africa, but across the globe, were driven through social media. And again, this is, another example of the things that we need to do. We need to train more young people and empower more youth advocates in SRH. That's a clear message that came out, and we have to do much more of that across the spectrum. And another important thing is we learned lessons during COVID. And the similar responses that we utilized during COVID is the kind of responses that we should be utilizing now. We need tangible interventions, that bring ministries together, but also that bring an all of society approach to addressing the challenges that we face. So from civil society to private sector to academic institutions, to NGOs, to government institutions, we have to work together. And this is one of the reasons why we specifically put together the first non-state actors engagement that took place in Lusaka a few weeks ago, as Director Simea indicated earlier. But I want to just also indicate that we have an opportunity now, as we commemorate the 20th anniversary of the Youth Charter. We are also reviewing the African Youth Charter, and we have a significant space and opportunity now to ensure that we will leverage that opportunity to make certain amendments in the Youth Charter that would speak specifically to health and well-being, and as it relates to sexual and reproductive health in particular. So those were, some of the key aspects that came out. And as Asma indicated, this is a series of webinars we will share with you, and we hope that you would share with your world. Also, when we have the next set of webinars, we want to take some of these outcomes, bring ministers around the table, bring parliamentarians around the table to engage with you a little bit more and share some of the work that they are doing. Lastly, I want to say we have an exciting announcement that we want to make today. This afternoon, as the African Union Development Agency, we will be launching a call next week, and you are the first to hear about it. So in the course of next week, please, be sure to stick into our social media platforms, on our website, and everywhere where we basically are in the social media space. We will be launching the very first African Union Youth SRH Ambassadors Initiative. And this is a call that will be putting together a group of youth ambassadors specifically for SRH, who will have the opportunity to be recognized as elder NEPAD Youth SRH ambassadors of the continent, and who will also have opportunities to uplift youth voices in regional, continental, and even global SRH dialogues. But we will also have advocacy opportunities on youth health and well-being issues across various platforms. You'll also, have enhanced visibility. We had some fantastic examples of some of the things that you're doing across your various countries and in your regions, but you'll have this opportunity to now showcase some of those innovations and some of those, programs that you are running at a global stage. Of course, our focus is Africa, but you know that it will reach a global stage. We've also opened this call out to the diaspora. So those living in different parts of the continent, of the world, would be able, as long as they're African, would also be able to apply for this. And also, we are going to very specifically link these ambassadors with the heads of state of the respective countries, including the ministers of youth and ministers of health, and you will become an interlocutor with those politicians or policymakers, if you like. We're going to be working very closely with the Pan-African Youth Union to do this intervention, and across the continent, we know that they have reach in every single country, all 55 countries of the continent, and so we'll be working very closely with them to do this. We're also going to be helping them to strengthen and put together what we call the commissions for health and well-being within each country through the PYU interventions. And so you'll also have opportunities to participate in a number of sessions that we have across the continent, and we will cover all of that for you. So you'll have this massive exposure. And so we'll put the call out. It's only for young people between the ages of 18 and 35, of course, and the young people who have demonstrated commitment to SRH advocacy and youth empowerment. So please look out next week on all our platforms. We'll be launching this call officially. We wanted to make this announcement with everybody who's here, and I wish you all the best. Thank you so much, Asmai, and thank you once again to everybody for having participated in this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Linton. It's always a pleasure seeing that we are in good hands with your conclusions and with your way forward. And I'm so happy that we announced today the launch of the SRH ambassadors, AUD and EPAD SRH ambassadors. So on behalf of AUD and EPAD, the Pan-African Youth Union and the Southern Africa Youth Forum, I would like to sincerely thank you, all our speakers, youth leaders, advocates, partners, interpreters, technical teams, and participants who joined us today. Your contributions have reinforced a clear message. Sexual and reproductive health is not only a health priority, it's a foundation, as Linton said and all of you said, for education, empowerment, employment, leadership, gender equality in Africa's demographic dividend. We encourage all participants to remain engaged. This is only the first webinar. A series is coming. You share the key messages from today's webinars across your social media handles, digital communication, as my dear brother Sean said, and continue supporting youth-led action on sexual reproductive health and demographic dividend priorities. Thank you once again, and we wish you a pleasant afternoon, morning, or evening, depending on where you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a
Bye-bye.
great weekend.
Bye-bye.